Peace.
There you are.
Peace.
I was
Peace.
like going back and forth. I'm like, did I do something wrong?
No, no, I think it's just a lag. I'm hoping that it won't be spotty as we do this because sometimes where I'm at, the Wi-Fi is a little weird. So hopefully it won't stall too much on us or anything. But your thing just wasn't lighting up saying live yet. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Well, I just wanted to welcome you. I was letting everyone know why I decided to do this. So my platform's for women of color who are entrepreneurs and creatives. And the reason that I created this was I had the podcast launch over 7 years ago because I kept seeing that women of color were the highest growing entrepreneurs, but they weren't being represented in the podcast world. And so I decided to launch it. And now it actually transformed into talking about transition. You know, what it does to us, what it brings up in us and how to heal and the depth of things in the reverse. And I feel like in these times, we're seeing that now. There's always a transition, transformation in everything. And I wanted to bring on men of color because it was Men's Health Month. But then if this, horrible event happened, and I felt like it was my way of using my platform to continue to give attention to that and bring, amazing men of color to talk about that. But also, of course, talk about your business and what you're doing. So if you could just kind of start with a small intro of who you are and what you do.
Sure, sure. Well, peace, family out there. I'm not good at giving people shout outs while they come on. Everything I saw my sister shout out Heather. Anybody else out there that knows either of us, shout out to y'all. Much love. And shout out to Carter. Thank you for connecting us. I appreciate it as well. And Jacqueline for your platform here. I'm Shophar from Full Show Energy Work. What I do is an energy work based on S.E.X, so sex, but that is an acronym, Sensual Emotional Exchange. So sensual being the body, and then emotional being the emotional component, being able to start being more aware of our emotions, and we become more aware through our breath and our awareness. So that's the X, the sensual emotional exchange, and the X is for the X factor, which is our consciousness, our awareness. And so my lady and me, we work with couples and singles. We do work around that, around sensuality and emotionality and stuff.
Beautiful. So if we can just kind of start with speaking on transition and what this time is asking of us. Like I mentioned before, for me, it kind of started talking about transformation because I went through my own, like I felt like I lost my identity, who I was. I started to question everything, what I was doing, the reason for why I was doing these things. And it brought me down into a very deep depression, and understanding that this was very normal, that I needed to break away from who I was so I can become and start evolving and doing the passionate work that I was really meaning to. And why this time was so important. We think, why didn't we do it before? But the time is so important. It's you deciding to do the work, and also that the timing is just right. And for me, it was my daughter heading off to college. It had me questioning, I was a teen mom, and it had me questioning everything. And so I say that because now this time with the quarantine, what happened to George Floyd, everything that's going on, and it's asking us to look at the things that are constantly getting repeated. So what is your perspective when it comes, what is this time asking of us?
I love what you're saying here, Jacqueline. For me, this time of transition, as you talk about, is calling for us to emerge differently than where we went in. It's asking us to metamorphose, to come out of this in a different way, to do some time for introspection. It's like literally stay at home, stay inward, go inward. It's asking of us to have an inward energy. And anytime even with, the death that's been here, with it being showcased, and, the death is right here at our doors, so to speak, and everything. That is a deep call for us to go inward and to also value life even more. Something that one of the masters that I love, Osho, said is that sadness and sorrow are the roots of life. They're the roots. And then from the roots, and we have to have the roots in order to be able to go upward and to experience the blossoming. And so this time of transition is asking us to go deeper into these things that make us as a collective sad. It's kind of sad to have to be in your house and isolated from the people that you love and have to put masks on and not see each other's brilliant, beautiful smiles and faces anymore.
Right.
it's sad it can be saddening to not be able to gather together, to feel isolated. And it's sad to see a person have their life literally taken from them
Right.
publicly.
Right.
You know, and if those things don't sadden us, then we need to check our pulse, man. So what I say at this moment, Jacqueline, is asking of us is to go deeper into those roots and thus be able to come up with the blossoms.
Right. So my next question is, what a lot of the stuff that's come up, and I think for me a lot of like sensitivity is coming up. How do you deal with the people that I see around me, I should say that I feel still don't get it? I've gone off on people at work. Literally went off on someone at work, and I feel myself like, I know I can't react to everyone. I told my boyfriend it's not my job to to try to correct everyone or have everyone see or understand. But how do you balance that? How do you not react to everything, but still make sure that you are speaking your truth, but not letting it, I guess, overwhelm you?
Love that question. Really, really good question. I think and first off, allowing ourselves the space to be reactionary sometimes. And that's okay, because we're going to do this ourselves even. And somebody might catch us when we're right here at the bottom point. Right now, I'm not in my goddamn high self right now. I'm in my, and you just said some fucked up shit and you still don't get it. And I'm going to help you get it right now.
Right.
And of course, they probably won't, a person forced against their will is still of the same opinion still, each one of us are going to blossom in our own unique and divine time. So from a higher self point, when we're at that peak and be able to hold that vibration of being able to be the example and embodying that example and that unconditional agape love, and then depending on where we are on that, you catch me on the wrong day, I'm
gonna start telling you about yourself.
Right.
So how do you do, because I know you speak about breathwork, and I want to get into that. I know that a lot of the times I need to have a better practice, right? When I've meditated, and I don't do it as much, but I do journal. I constantly check in with myself. I check in with my loved one. I try to do that as much as possible, and it's very important for me to get my sleep. Because if I don't get my sleep, that's how I go off on people at work.
Right.
What is your practice for someone that, in these times they're like, I find myself just going off, I'm getting way too emotional. What is a practice that someone can kind of like put into their lives so that they can focus and be able to balance and go out into this world, so that, it's not affecting them as much, but they're still feeling connected, I guess?
It always comes back to the breath. It begins and ends with the breath for me. And so, because any of the things that we would think of as solutions out there, we're going to be breathing when we do it. So, the traumas that happen to us, we're breathing when that happens.
Right.
The one common thread, that puts this human quilt together is that we're breathing through the whole process. So I say the most simple way, so that we don't have to, go up on the mountain and meditate or this or that, is to bring ourselves back to our breathing as much as possible. And then from there, if we can align and choose our emotion naturally, so if we can try to best we can feel, if I'm frustrated, feel just a little bit less frustrated. Just reach for one rung higher of emotionality that brings us more and more back up to a place of agape. Because going back into the transition thing and that you asked earlier, that the sadness that comes sometimes from letting go of old shit. And let me ask you, by the way, do you mind me cursing and stuff? Because I dropped that.
No, we're all grown here. I hope.
Okay, just making sure. Those roots of those sadness and everything is going into really appreciating life. Really appreciating life. If we really appreciate this life that we're giving, we may have a little bit more emotional bandwidth to hear this person out, especially if they're in that low point right now. And that's the place that they're speaking from. And we're able to recognize and make womb. I like to say make womb, WOMB, make womb, make room for this person right now who's not, they're in a certain place right now. And that calls for us, again, the breath, and then bringing ourselves back up to as much as we can, our emotionality, to trying to reach for another level of a higher emotion if we can, in any given space or time.
Right. You know, something that I'm going to ask you, being that I am very, I mean, look at me. I'm a very light Latina. And for me, it's recognizing that and knowing that there are certain privileges. Yes, I am an immigrant. I'm a woman. You know, I'm a brown woman. I am, you know, proud Mexican American. But I recognize within these times that I love all of, you know, my brothers and my Black brothers and sisters. But it just brought me to another level of like, how can I support them? How can I support my loved ones in these times that I know they experience things, and I recognize that I don't wake up and witness, you know, and witness the things that they may feel or have to react to. Like, how do I support them? I have this platform, I have things, but like, I check in with them. Hey, how are you doing? What are some things that you would love? And how can we show support?
I love what you're doing right here. I think giving voice to the traditionally voiceless, to those, especially when we talk about people with consciousness, like, let's understand like why people say that there's no Black leaders. Maybe because we've killed them. Maybe because we marginalized them. Sure. And this is historically, you know, that those who have a voice and those who would be good leaders, you know, like I love to say, I like to give two examples. Fred Hampton, this was a young brother, 20 years old. He was part of the Black Panther movement. But he wasn't just getting Blacks together. He was getting poor whites together in the Appalachian Mountains and getting them to talk to each other. And he was killed at 20 years old. Right. You know? And then another example I like to give is a person I met personally. Was a brother by the name of Ken Bridges. People don't know this brother's name. He was putting together a Pan-African, you know, so American Blacks and other Blacks throughout the diaspora back to Africa, and putting together an export-import business. And I sat with him in the car in DC, and we talked, and he had big dreams and aspirations and doing big things. It just so happened in 2000, in the early 2000s, that the brother was part of that sniper attack thing that happened back in the day, where these snipers had went around killing people randomly. Right. The random killings. So I say all of that to say, Jacqueline, that exactly what you're doing, in my opinion, is giving a platform, those of us, and for any of those influencers that have a platform where you can reach many people, allowing us at this point, those of us who have a message, to borrow that platform for a moment and share what we have to offer. Right.
Well, I think that people don't understand, like, for me, the way, you know, to look at me now, I think a lot of people see what I'm doing or the way I look. I certainly, they have this mindset of like who I am or where I came from. And of course, obviously the color that I am, they have this mentality. But I grew up, you know, I'm an immigrant. I grew up in the hood, you know, we didn't have a lot. And for me, I've been on my own since I was 15. And every time that someone had asked me, like, you know, you hung around gang members, you were this person, like, what changed your life? I read Malcolm X. And Malcolm X let me see that you can come from the gutter and you can rule a nation, you can change minds, you can write books, you can educate yourself. When I saw him, I saw myself. You know, when he died, obviously he died before my time, it hurt me deeply. Because when people talk about him, they constantly focus on like the bad that he was doing or the bad things, but he changed his whole perspective. Like, he evolved into this being, and, you know, he went to Mecca, like this whole thing. And he's just, I guess for me, it's like, really do your research and understand that, yes, he was a Black leader, but he was a leader. He affected and changed many lives after he died. He should certainly change mine. And that is always something that every time I think back, I was 15, I read the autobiography, and it just changed my whole life. To be able to see myself as someone who I thought I wasn't shit, to see him, the way he evolved and was leading, I knew that that was possible. To come from nothing and be a leader and lead a nation, you know, and change lives. So that was like so pivotal for me to changing. So I think and that is the reason that I have a platform, and that's the reason that I think people need to be heard. It's because if you don't know even one book one poem, it changes, it lets up the voiceless be heard. When he wrote that book and I read it, I felt seen, I felt heard, and I felt understood. And I even felt loved. There was a love that he had for us and for people to write this book and to be himself. And that's what people started gravitating to, loving yourself, owning who you are. So I'm glad that you're sharing all this and that you're coming on. I certainly want you to talk more about the work that you're doing. If there's anything that you want to share with us that you think it's important, and also about the work you do, because I love that you're working with your girlfriend, correct? It's girlfriend,
Yes.
wife? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
how did that like come to be?
Well, you know, the work that I do, first off, I want to say about Malcolm, I want to, you know, definitely say that he was also a big part of my transition, of my metamorphosis as well. And also my lady that you're speaking of, same thing. And she's Indian. Shout out to Kirti, I saw you on here. She's from the Hindu culture, India, and it's still, he affected her too. So like you said,
Right.
not just a black leader, a leader.
A leader, yeah.
A leader. And so, but as far as the work that I do, I truthfully believe that sensual emotional exchange, like if we have people having better quality sex, that it can change the world.
Right.
Because the nature of sex, like we've been missold on what it is, and it's just really in our culture now, it's just genitals meeting.
Right.
You know, the reason why I use the acronym that I do is because understanding and everything, that sex is way more vast than we've made it out to be, and that it is the roots of our being, our sensuality, our body, being in our body, being embodied. And the more that we go into our bodies and feel, the more our consciousness naturally grows. And if we try to cut off the roots and we have all these constrictions around sensuality and sexuality because of, you know, false beliefs, because of you still there? Because I can't see you.
I am. I'm sorry. I think I pressed something. Can you hear me?
I can hear you though. That's fine. I'll just keep talking. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. No worries. So around our sensuality, if we go deeper into the feeling of our body and everything, our consciousness naturally grows. And if we have a bunch of false beliefs that put limits and constrictions on our ability to love and or feel pleasure, then the tree is going to be a smaller tree. It's going to be a bonsai. You know, it could have been this great, beautiful oak with our awareness system, our consciousness growing to Buddha or Christ to it. And that's why we don't have more Buddhas and more Christ on the planet. It's because around our sensuality, we have restricted ourselves. Right. Ironically, a lot of times by the same religions that name themselves after those people.
Right.
Because I always like to say that Christ wasn't a Christian and Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. They just were.
Right. Right.
And I believe that they were very sensual beings as well.
Right. Right.
So that's what the work that it came about me working with my lady, because that was just a natural evolution of, I started off doing it like the first, I don't know, what was it, 2017. So first 4 years by myself. And then when I met her, it was just a natural transition. It's around the Me Too movement and all that stuff too. And I'm like, I'm not trying to get Me Too. You know, I work a lot with women at the time. Just at the time, I was just working with women, and it's around sensuality and everything. It's like, yep, I want some feminine energy with me. And now it's just a natural flow with us just to keep doing it together. And we've done it. Now we work on men. We've worked on men. We've worked on transsexual. So it's now, again, because the consciousness just kept expanding in us too. So now we work with even more people.
Right. So why do you think we do that? Like for me, I know like trauma comes to mind and trying to control the body and the emotions and things that are happening around that. So I know a lot of the times we can shut down when it comes to sex. The experience will be purely physical or purely emotional, or we have these things where we can't let go. We're still trying to hold on and trying to control everything when it comes to that. Because you grew up a certain way and you can't react to things. You have to kind of like be focused so that you are not in danger, right? Depending on where you grew up and what kind of neighborhood you grew up. So there's a lot of that stunts our growth. I know for me, spiritually, and even with partnerships, I felt like I was in a sense stunted because of the way that I grew up. So I had to learn, right, how to open up, how to have boundaries, and how to do all these things. But how does one, like, coming to your work, who maybe, you know, is very used to being in control and doesn't want to feel the things, because if once you start to feel things, you start to feel all of the things, right?
Right.
And you've been trying to, you know, you tell yourself, I'm controlling everything, but everything is out of control. You're just trying to, like, grasp onto. So when someone comes to you that maybe has experienced something like that, and they're looking for a connection, they're wanting to let go, how does that process start of starting to feel in your body versus your mind, right, taking over?
It's a vulnerability thing. It's just first coming to the inner and over and understanding of, like you saying, that, okay, I want to allow this. So there's a certain vulnerability there, because anytime we open ourselves up, then the world can, you know, they have access to us, more access and everything. So there is a vulnerability there, but this process naturally happens with the feminine. And again, when I talk about feminine, masculine energies, I'm talking about just that, energies. It's not talking about genitalia per se. So in other words, all beings, all of us have the feminine and masculine energies to different degrees in us. So the feminine energy naturally opens when it is around conscious and aware masculine. Now, we can do that first for ourselves, or we can do that with someone who understands that and who is carrying that masculine energy and allows for the feminine to open safely. And that's what sex is supposed to be for us. But we've forgotten these ancient technologies that, you know, that allow us to do that. But that's why they are back on the planet again, and we're at it again, and helping people again to remember these things, because it is an ancient knowledge that is in all of us. We already know how to be these things, but we've forgotten.
Right. So how does someone come to you, or what is, I guess, what would be the question? I know that we're coming, the time is starting to come to an end. I don't know how long I have you, but what are the things that people consistently are asking of you, that you notice there's like a pattern right now with everyone coming to you with the same question?
More or less, you already hit on it. It's like being in the head. And by the way, I can go as long as an hour. So
okay,
we can play slow of it, and you know, if it ends before that, fine. And but 5 hours is good for me.
Okay.
Being in our head a lot, and that's definitely a very common one. It's like, I would like to not be in my head so much, especially when I'm in the bedroom, and be in my body more. How do I do it? And that is a process, and it is a gentle invitation, and that's all it can be. We can't force it to happen. Everything is going to bloom in its own time, but we start to create the environment for it to happen naturally. And that's by looking at the false belief systems, and by looking at the, you know, feeling into and starting to process the emotions that may have anything that was felt that did not feel like love. Those are the soil emotions. Those, again, are the things that the root go deeper into. So it's not that they're negative.
Right.
They are the stuff that we grow from. They're the manure. They're the shit. They're the fertilizer. But we need to take our consciousness and go deeper into them, and allow. And if we go deeper into those feelings, and then we're able to transmute and alchemize them, eventually the plant just blossoms. Next thing you know, you're not even thinking about it. You're in your body.
Do you think that starts with trust, with communication, with working on yourself first? Like, how do you feel that starts?
I say it starts ideally with ourselves, and then also can start with relating. You know, so if you have a conscious partner, you know, if you have a conscious partner, someone who can make room, make space for us, then we can also do it in that place. So I would say either by ourselves and or with a partner. Either one of those work.
You know what I'm getting a lot of the people that come on, they talk a lot about working on yourself first. And I think a lot of us don't do that because there's a lot of fear there that when we do the work, we're not going to really like what we're feeling. We're not going to really like ourselves. We're not really, and a lot of the times, like, we don't really know how to change or how to evolve, right? Okay, we're sitting down with ourselves. We're dealing with our stuff. We're not liking it. And the most fearful part that I found for myself, and I think for other people, is that we're comfortable with the stuff that we don't like because it's the knowing of it. But we go into this battle with ourselves, right? And all our shit comes up, just like you said, right? And there's growth there, only we don't know it. And we're fearful that maybe we won't get to the other side because we don't know what that rebirth is. So how do you deal with not knowing, right? How do you deal with not knowing yourself and how maybe bad it was, but then what is next after that?
I feel like there's a certain letting go that happens of with that not knowing thing. And one other thing I want to be clear on with the doing it ourselves, or being able to do it as you know, self-sourcing and doing it ourselves, or you know, having an expanded understanding about what is meant to be even self, what is meant to be us as an individual. Even the word individual has the word dual in it. Individual but dual, and that's for a purpose. When the Greeks put that together, they got the concept from the people in Kemet in Africa, and we understand that there is no such thing as an individual. We're all linked. So whether you do it, quote unquote, by yourself, or you do it with your partner, or you come to a quote unquote master, it's still self.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be where we just be in isolation by ourselves. Like if you go to another person and you get some wisdom, that's still you. We're just reflecting each other.
Right.
We're still God body, you know? And so the thing with the knowing piece though is that is the thing with the mind, is that it wants to know what's next, how we're going to do it, you know? And there comes a point where it's like we just throw down our arms and like, I don't know.
Right.
And when we do that, Jacqueline, the interesting thing about the word no is that it has now in it. And that's for a reason. Again, the Greeks knew what they were doing when they put that word together. The word no has now in it, because we have that moment where we give up and it's like, I don't know what's coming next. That's where the next step comes from, in the now. It's not going to come if we're trying to project in and we're going back to the past. But if I do this, that's what happened last time. That was last time. Oh, well, trying to figure out the next step. Fuck the next step. Now.
Right. And it's funny, like once you let go and you realize, like now obviously that I'm out of it, I realize, like I remember someone said, you know what depression is, right? It's a spiritual, you have a spiritual disease. Like there's something, your spirit has a disease, there's a depression, there's a darkness that's going on. And when she said that, I'm like, it just made so much sense. I wasn't myself. I wasn't who I used to be. I didn't know myself. It was just being very lost in it. And going out and having to actually show up as this person who, quote unquote, always had it together and always figured it out, because I was a single mom and I've been on my own since I was, forever. And for me not to have it together, not understanding the strength in that of not having it together, and finally being able to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I am drowning. I don't know what's next. I need help. To finally being able to say those things, how powerful that was. Because it was very hard for me to be vulnerable and to trust. And it was never trusting outside of myself. It was trusting myself. That I'm going to be okay regardless. Like, I think that was the biggest thing, sitting in the now and being okay with not having the answer, and understanding and seeing through others, through conversations, Uber drivers, a restaurant or something when I was at my darkest, moving all my stuff, and this guy like holding the door for me, just showing kindness, and how I remember like crying because he was just kind to me in a moment where I really needed it, and understanding that I was being watched. I was never alone. I was never in just by myself. Even if I lived in LA at the time and didn't have family over there, a lot of was going on, understanding that this was happening for me, not against me, and that someone always had my back and spoke through people, through events, through things that were happening. So I think that was probably one of the scariest but most beautiful journeys, to realize that you are always being taken care of and someone is always watching out after you, even if you believe in your darkest moment that that's not it. So I always try to tell people, just where you think you are the loneliest is where you're the most supported. So I appreciate this conversation. If there's anything else that you want to share, I always close it off by asking, you know, our guests, how can we support you? And if you can let us know where to find you. And if you have anything else to add, please let us know.
Sure. Well, speaking to that point about what you just said there, that to me is exactly what we were talking about, the expanded understanding of ourselves, is that the guy opening the door for you, the Uber driver, you know, just the right people at the right time. Like you are expanded version of just not just Jacqueline, but the people and the circumstances, the places, the bird that sings at just the right time. Like, you know, and shout out to my sister Farron. I saw she just jumped on. I have 4 younger sisters, so my sisters jumped on. Shout out to Farron. So yeah, it's that expanded version of ourselves, and the more that we go into the now and feeling it, we know that we are taken care of. One of the things about, and I want to speak one more thing on that about the depression. Literally, the word depressed is like there's a contraction, there's a depression, a pressure on our lungs. In traditional Chinese medicine, when we feel grief, sadness, and depression, it's letting us know that energy is not going through our lungs. Energy is not going through our lungs. So in the energy work that I do, based on the emotions that show up, it's letting me know where the energy is not flowing. And see, that's what Kirti and me, my lady and me, we teach people. We teach them for themselves, and then as couples, to start looking at our emotionality to let us know where in the body the energy is not flowing.
I think you may have cut out a little bit.
Oh, it cut out?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, so as we start to do that process.
Wait, right.
What's that? I didn't hear you.
If you can just, I know you were saying it's the way the energy moves through the body, and then what did you say after that?
Okay, so yeah, when we start to feel the body more, and the emotions will let us know where in the body the energy is not flowing. You know, so say for instance the spleen, that's associated with anxiety and nervousness. Fear is the kidneys. And so once we start to know that, then we are start to know where to focus our energy, or focus our attention with a massage, or you know, some breath work to move the energy. And then what starts to happen is we start to become more orgasmic naturally, because orgasm is our natural state. So especially for the feminine. So if we're in a place where like, oh, I got to get out of my head, I can't, you know, I get in the bedroom, I can't orgasm, or it's hard for me, or that's because the energy is just not naturally flowing through our body. The more that we start to deal with these things, the more orgasmic we naturally become, or we become aware, because that is our natural tendency. And in closing out, you asked me like, what could people do, or what's next for me, or whatever, or how they could support. One of the big things for me, Jacqueline, right now is like with the state of things, what is going on. I'm seeing the individual work that needs to be done, like still doing the work with couples, with single people, and the collective. Right. And right now, racism is at the forefront, you know, and I don't want it to have to be another sacrifice in order for us to understand. You know, it's like, as that dies down, hopefully we don't have to go through another one to keep that fervor that is in this moment. Like, let's keep our awareness there. But so this past week, my lady, she asked me to be on her Instagram live, and what came through for me is an acronym for racism, and I'm very excited about it. This is something I'm focusing on, is bringing this to people so that we can start more collectively working through things. So racism is an acronym. And the A in racism is awareness. So taking the A and putting it above, like the light shining down on everything else, that is our awareness. The R is for racism. The C is for classism. Another great evil of us as human beings is classism, is social economic status. The next thing, the I is for intellectualism, putting so much emphasis on the mind that we negate the body. That we negate the school, that we negate the material realm. You know, how many PhDs do you have? Are you, you know, what education level? That's intellectualism. Right. It's not that those things don't have value, but when we put overemphasis on them, it creates dysfunction, disharmony. The S is for sexism. That's why I don't say humanity. I say human beings because I don't want to keep putting the masculine over the feminine.
Mm.
So even saying human, we're still putting emphasis on the man, or praying to the Father above. You know, thinking of God as a man somewhere or a masculine being. Well, what about the goddess? Where is she in this equation?
Right.
You know, so recognizing the yin and yang flow of both, and that we need both. And then if you don't recognize either one of those binaries, if you're somewhere in between and fluctuate between the two,
Right.
that's fine. So sexism. And then the last one, the M for in racism, is materialism.
Mm.
And that is putting overemphasis on the material realm and not the spiritual or intellectual realm. Some of us are caught into getting things. I want that car. I want that, you know, all these things. Economics.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that either. But again, too much of it, dysfunction. And so anyway, racism, taking our awareness to look at racism, classism, intellectualism, sexism, and materialism. The energy work that I do and everything, we can base that on singles, we can base that on couples, and now what I'm looking to do is like us starting to have those uncomfortable conversations. You know, in the yoga community here in San Diego where we both live, it's like there's a lot of, I feel like, Jacqueline, a lot of spiritual bypassing. It's like saying that we're all one, you know, all lives matter. No question. All our organs matter.
Right.
But if our kidneys are almost at a place of dysfunction, we need to focus on our kidneys.
Right. Right.
You know? And what's happening to Black people, been happening to them, we're at a place of needing to address that. We don't get to go around that. We have to go through that. Yes, all lives matter. Yes, all lives matter. And we're going to focus some energy on Black people right now. All lives matter. You know, we're going through it, not around it.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
I love
any of
all
this,
of that. Yeah.
Huh?
I just wanted to say really fast that I love that you brought up each and one of those things, because when it comes to transition, when you're going through it, you are losing each one of those things. You're losing your material. You're losing who you think you are. You know, you're losing, you have this job, you have this money, you start losing it. Like, you start losing every single thing so that you are able to recognize that you are not those things. You're not even who you think you are. And through all that breakdown, I don't know, it just made so much sense when you were talking about it. And it's true. It's just like, you know, people can, all lives matter. It's like all lives don't matter if you're not recognizing that Black men and women are being hunted in this country, and that we are saying nothing, and that people are turning away. This is something that you cannot turn away from. So, you know, there was an Instagram that said that, yes, all lives matter, but we're going to focus on the Black ones right now. And I agree with you. I was like, that was perfect. So
I agree with you. If we keep saying all lives matter, and the kidneys are getting ready to function, you know, at a place that need to be on dialysis or something, and all the other organs matter, and we don't put emphasis, you're not going to have it. And if we keep doing that with Black people, if we keep doing that with the environment, you know, and not putting on the environment, life is not going to keep. We need each other. So I love that. Yeah. Anything else you have? Any other questions alive in you, or?
No, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I love that we're having the difficult conversations. I love that we're facing one another and the things that are, you know, bothering us right now. I love that we talked about sex. I love that it's all energy work. So yeah, everything. Make sure and let people know where they can find you, because I certainly want to make sure that they have all the information that they need and they know where to find you.
All right, so I'll do my wrap up here then. So again, I'm Shophar from Full Show Energy Work. I do coaching for couples and singles. I do energy work for couples and singles around sensuality, emotionality, the S.E.X, Sensual Emotional Exchange. I have a book, Soul, Sacred Orgasmic Living. I'll make sure, Jacqueline, that you have the link for that.
Yes.
Soul, Sacred Orgasmic Living. I also have a YouTube channel with podcasts where I interview other people or where I'm just speaking myself. And I have a series of workshops. One called Hip Hop Kundalini, one called Intimate Relating. So there's a lot of things. If any of this resonated with you, even just a little bit, reach out.
Great. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining us. For those that weren't able to join in live, thank you so much for watching this. Bye, guys.
All right. Peace.